Hello, hello. It is Susan from Sassy C Art Shop. Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know what I do here, I like to do a little art, creativity, fun. And today we are going to see what a dessert looks like as a character. Let's get into it. Alrighty, guys. So I wanted to show you a drawing I did back in 2024. So here it is. So I actually created this challenge called Foodtuary, where every day for the month of February for that year, I had a type of food and I turned it into a character. So the very first one I did was this red velvet cupcake in my little chibi style, and I think she's really, really cute. I love her design and her outfit. But I did see a dress on Pinterest and it really inspired me to kind of give her a redesign. I'm not redrawing her perfectly. I'm completely just redesigning her based on the theme of red velvet cake because I was curious what it would look like in my style now. So certain things I like about this one, the little chibi one, I like that it's very rich. I love the little corseted top. I wanted to incorporate the cupcake liner, so that's why I did that at the bottom. And I wanted to have like the frosting with the cream cheese frosting overlay, so that's why she has that and white gloves. And you know, she's very rich and elegant, so that's why I gave her the tiara. But let's see how she would look in my style now. All right, so I have just finished the sketch and you guys are going to see it in 3, 2, 1. All right, here she is. Like I said, this is a completely different design. I'm not redrawing that character. I just am using the theme of red velvet cake and making her into a character. Again, I wanted to convey the richness of it. I wanted it to be immediately elegant. So the silhouette is one I saw on Pinterest. I just really liked the gown. It has like this draping fabric across the bust. It has sort of a corseted waist, and then it has a sort of mermaid style skirt with a high slit. And I'm going to color all of this with the reds to convey the velvet look. And then I gave her white gloves that have like little rosettes on them to mimic sort of the frosting on cakes. And then I'm going to give her this white fur coat if everything works out. I gave her like a 1920s hairstyle. I thought that would look really cute because I was looking up some of the history of it, and red velvet cake actually started like in Victorian times. It was a chocolate cake, and it was like actually how they mixed the ingredients. It kind of gave it a reddish brown texture, and since it was for the elegant, more wealthy people, you know, they said velvet to immediately convey that. It did make a resurgence in the 20s and 30s, so I thought it would be cute to give her a sort of 20s hairstyle. So yeah, we're going to get into the line work and see how it goes, and I really hope this goes well. I'm thinking of giving her a sort of darker skin tone. I think that'll contrast really well, maybe if I do white hair, but I haven't decided yet, so let's get into the line work. Let's see how it goes. So here I'm just doing the line work real quick. Not too much to say about this since I'm using a limited color palette as far as that goes. So I'm just using my Prismacolor colored pencils, using a warm gray for the whites and a dark purple for the reds, and then a sort of mahogany brown for the skin tone. Nothing too special here. I think it's going to look way better when I actually do the coloring. Right now it's just kind of like, it's there, so enjoy. All right, so I've just finished the line work. I used my Prismacolor colored pencils for that. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it's ugly stage, but this is a trust the process moment. So let's get into the coloring and trust the process. All right, so I am getting into the coloring of my red velvet cake girl. Like I said, I wanted her to be very luxurious, very rich, very elegant. I wanted to embody that in all of the design. So, you know, I created a look that is very, very like wealthy looking. I liked that, and looking into the history of it, it was originally a chocolate cake, so that's why I decided to go with a sort of medium mahogany dark skin tone. I think that works really well. I'm just using my Ohuhu alcohol markers to blend it all out and everything. And at first I gave her like a really bright red lip, but I decided to tone it down some because after like I had colored the skin, I felt like it was just a little too much. Here I'm doing like the face and stuff, and it's so annoying sometimes because I'm like, I really like the Prismacolor colored pencils for my line work. I really like the soft look it gives. But I swear sometimes because it just kind of blends into the markers when I'm doing the markers on the face, since it's such a small little space, my brain is like, oh, just color into the eye. And I'm like, no, why did you do that? Anyway, but yeah, so here I'm starting to color the velvet. And I don't remember how many shades of red I used. I think it was like 8 or something though, because I really wanted to envelop so many the different lights and shadows and blend the layers and stuff. And I did want it to be dark red. I didn't want it to be bright red. I know that red velvet cake, because it has modern food coloring, can be that very bright red, but I actually like the darker red, the one that mixed with a chocolate cake earlier. Some history says like during like World War I or II, I can't remember which, they actually used like beet juice to make that red color. So I think that would still be a pretty dark red. For the layering of the velvet, I swear like each part of the dress, even though it's all velvet, I was like, what if I colored it in a different way each time, you know? So sometimes I started with the dark and added the light, layering from the darkest to the lightest. Sometimes I layered from the lightest to the darkest. And sometimes I did a bit of a combo of the two where I went in with what would be the brightest shade of red, and then I went in with the darkest shadows, and then I added all the midtones in between, blending them out, adding more shadow as necessary. I really think with velvet, you have to create a lot of contrast in the dress, which is what I tried to do with all the highlights and everything. And because it's very fitted at the waist and hips, and then it kind of flares out in sort of that mermaid style, and velvet has those sharp highlights, I wanted to be sure to include those, to include the folds of the fabric to make it look really rich and luxurious instead of just like super flat. I didn't want it to look silky, so I didn't want to add too bright of highlights, but I do go in with colored pencils and add some highlights and things like that. So for the corset part, I really had this idea where it's like you're opening the cake and you see the layers of the cream cheese frosting and the red velvet cake. And I really liked that idea, but I had layered my red first just because I was like, oh, I'll just put white paint pen over it. And I forgot that when you put white paint pen over it, it kind of like turns pink almost. So I did try to fix that with some colored pencils and a bit more paint pen. And overall, I'm not super happy with how the corset part of the dress looks, but that's like the only thing that I'm kind of dissatisfied with. As far as the rest of the dress goes, I really love the different shades of red. I really love the really bright highlights and the really dark shadows. Like I said, I did go in with some black and white colored pencils just to really bring out those shadows and highlights because velvet has that really deep texture, and I wanted to include that. And I did put some tiny little dots to kind of emphasize that velvet look as well. I also decided to give her a high slit because I wanted to see her little shoes. I just thought it would be cute for her to have like red velvet shoes with like a little bow. You can't see them like super well because like the dress covers most of it, but I just thought that was a cute detail and I wanted to include it. When I was designing her, I just drew the dress. And I really did love the silhouette of the dress, but I felt like it was just like, oh, you have the red velvet dress, and it's not really embodying red velvet cake. And I wanted to do that. So I did include the white fur coat. I looked at some like ones from like starlets. So I think I looked at like Elizabeth Taylor and a few others, and just like how it drapes over them. I thought that would be really cool to incorporate the sort of frosting look, to include the white and things like that, because I do have white gloves on her as well, but I just felt like it needed more. Otherwise, it would be a naked cake without any frosting. And let's face it, people who are like, I love naked cakes. Okay, so the worst part of the cake, that's what you want. Like the frosting's the best part. Anyway, but yeah, so I wanted to include the texture of the fur on that and things like that. And then for her hairstyle, like I said, I went with sort of a 1920s, 1930s look. And then she's got like the beaded headband with the red feather. I wasn't going to include the red feather, but it's just like I drew the little gold jewels at first. And I was like, you know what? I think it needs a little something extra. So I added the feather. For her jewelry, I wanted it to stand out a lot. So I actually colored all the skin and everything with my markers. And then I went in with my paint pens and went over it with like a sort of yellow bronzy color. And then just added a few details with some of the red for the jewels, and then like some whites and stuff just to give it a really nice shine, which I really, really like. Let me know what other desserts you guys would want to see possibly, because like I said, I did do this as part of my 2024 Fooduary. And so I have all those that were desserts. So I might redesign some of those. But I might do some that I've never heard of or anything like that. But it's really fun to take things that are not characters or dresses and turn them into a personification of that. I just think that's really, really fun. I think that's just something that can get your creative juices flowing and things like that. And I just really, really like it. So I really like designing different fabrics and stuff, like the velvet and the fur in this. I feel like I could have gone deeper with the fur, like the texture and stuff. And you can't really see it from how my camera is angled. I didn't zoom in on a lot of the footage for this because sometimes I do so y'all can see it better, but I just felt like I kept moving around the whole time I was drawing. So it was easier just to see the whole figure at once. And here I'm just adding a very simple background. I wanted something that would exude the richness as well, but without taking away from the dress. So I just did this very simple gradient background and added some like white bubbles to it with my white paint pen. And I did outline her in brown. I just think that made her really pop out really well. So I'm glad that I did that and added the little bubbles. Alrighty guys, so I have just finished my red velvet cake as a character, and y'all are gonna see the finished result in 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! So here she is. I think she turned out good. I feel like her face, it got like a little smudged in places, which is okay, but it's just a little disappointing. I like the draping fabric. I like the pearl buttons. For the corset part, my thinking was kind of that it would be like when you slice into the cake and you can see the cream cheese frosting layers. I don't know how well that worked out. It kind of turned more pink when it was layered over the red, but I think it's still cool. I love the like 1920s jewelry and hairstyle. I think that's really cool. I love the velvet of the dress. I think that's my favorite part. I added these little sparkly bits just because I thought it needed a little extra. I like the gloves, and they're supposed to be like little red rosettes on it to kind of call back to like the frosting again. But those kind of smeared, so they don't look as good as I want, but they still look pretty good. And I do think the white fur coat draped over it really adds to the white or red velvet cake instead of just like a red velvet dress. I decided to give her this sort of dark cream champagne colored background, and then added like little white dots so it kind of does look like champagne, so that adds to the elegance and the richness of it. But yeah, this is red velvet cake as a character. Let me know what desserts you think I should draw next. All right, so that is it for me today, guys. This is my red velvet cake as a couture character. I really like how she turned out. Let me know, like I said, in the comments what you would want to see next. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like these kind of videos. And don't forget, I do commissions too. So if you have a favorite dessert that you want as your personal character, hit me up. The information's down in the description below. Until the next one, I'll see y'all. Bye.